The shack. Alright, well here we go. Welcome back to the shack. There's a couple of things I'm changing on the channel now. So listen, I'm telling everyone my goals for the channel. This is it. This is the big thing. I want to get 288 million people on the planet affected by a positive change, and I don't know what that positive change is yet, but I just want to be able to impact as many people as I can. In 15 years, I want to reach 288 million people to try and give them a positive experience on planet Earth. Together. Somehow we can do this. I'm not sure how, but we'll do it. So that's goal number one. That's a massive goal. So I need help to do that. I can't do it on my own. But we'll work out what that positive change is, and we'll hopefully work that together. That's massive. Anyway, let's see. Because I think we are totally underestimating the power of the internet. We are totally underestimating it. There are 10 billion people projected to be living on the planet in around 2080 maybe? 2080. So I won't be around in 2080, but I'm hoping some kind of positive impact coming, from people like myself who want to leave the planet in a better way than they found it. I think that if people like me want to make that kind of positive kind of influence, then I think it can happen. It's not so much one person doing it, because I don't think that's possible. I think it's, a figure around about, I'm just sitting on 288. I've made some maths equations and that's the number that came out. So it doesn't really mean a lot. It's just a figure that I've kind of pulled out of there. So 288 million people sounds like a lot, but when you put that against 10 billion, that's like, 0.2 of 10. It's not a massive percentage. It's a fraction of the world's population, but it might be enough to make an initial positive change. And that's, anyway, it's a goal. I think it's a big goal, but I think it's achievable as well. So rather than go for, positively influencing the whole planet, that's unrealistic. Let's aim small, still big, but 288 million. So I need help to do that. So that's one thing. The second thing is I want to add some value here for you. So part of the video I'm putting together tonight is going to be to show you how we get that blurred effect in the background. So you'll see that as a bit of an add-on thing. And that's the third kind of thing I guess I want to make a change to this channel, is to actually provide value. I don't want to be one of these people that kind of just puts up stuff that's going on in their life and that's the end of that's their story. I think that's a little bit boring and a little bit, that's what everyone does kind of thing. So I want to truly add some value. I'll think of something to add to each video that I produce going forward. There'll be at least one piece of value that you can grab from the videos that I'm producing, and I also want to push that 288 million goal in 15 years. So hopefully I'll have no hair by that stage, and I'll be a lot older, but hopefully a whole lot happier, a whole lot wiser, and I hope that the world will start to become even better than what it is. So, yeah, let's see what we can do. With that, here's that video I was talking about to get. Alright, how do you get that blur in the background over there? This is the value add part of the video. I will show you. Alright, it's best to get it when you've got a lens which has got a big aperture. I'll get into apertures in another video because that's a huge subject. Needless to say, there are people out there who are spreading misinformation and they just got it wrong and they don't understand it. I'll give you the explanation that is actually scientifically correct, photographically correct, and mechanically and aesthetically correct as well. This lens here I've got is really awesome. It's an f1.2. It's a massive opening. f1.2 lenses are huge. So just remember, for f numbers, it's all about the reverse of what you think. It's inverse, alright? So the smaller the number, the bigger the opening, the bigger the aperture. It's inverse, alright? So the smaller the number, the bigger the opening. And I'll show you what I mean. You see in there, that's wide open, that lens. That is f1.2, the biggest opening. This is the biggest lens opening that I've got. That's the other side there. So yeah, the biggest opening. So set the lens for the lowest number that you've got. That'll open it completely wide like that. Put that on the camera, and then what you're doing is, this is basically then going to be, this is a manual focus lens, so the other lenses that you've got on your newer DSLRs are going to be autofocus. I choose manual everything, just out of a side note there, just so you can learn how to use the camera really well, very quickly, because you'll see what works, what doesn't work in a digital camera very quickly. So don't be afraid of putting the whole camera in manual and working out what works, what doesn't work. You'll learn a lot quicker, you'll be a better photographer for it, and you will thank me later. So this is the way to do it. You open it up, to get a nice blur in the background, you open up the lens as wide as it goes, and then manually or automatically focus on that part of the person or the object that you want to focus on. And the closer that you get to that object and focus it in, so for example, if I were to focus on this thing here, it's pretty close. I'll try and focus it in. I'm not sure I can do it that way. There you go. See how that is in focus there? So this lens I've got on the camera is set at f2.0. That's the widest opening I can get on this lens that's on the camera. This lens here is even better, f1.2. It's got an even bigger aperture. I'll get an even bigger effect of blur. What's happening here is the depth of field. Depth of field is another subject which I'll explain to you at a later point, but this is basically giving us a very narrow band of what's in focus, what's out of focus. See how that's in focus there, but then out of focus there. I'm only moving it a little bit, and out of focus there. So within about 2 centimeters, it goes in and out of focus. That's because that aperture is as wide as it goes. If you make that aperture on a smaller number, what's that number going to be? Here, so this one here, see that? That's what they do, and what F22. Says more about what you think. F16 on this one, it's not quite the same as the other lenses. So this is F16. The smallest on a lot of other lenses is like F22. So this is a different lens, and this one here, the smallest it goes is F16. F16, when it's like that, it's like a little pinhole. That actually makes everything in focus across not just 2 centimeters, but probably 2 meters. If I can do that on this lens, I'll do it now. Not sure how I'm going to do this. I'll stop the video. Okay, so this is now on f22. Not as good a lens, the one that I've got on the camera, as this one in my hand. So this lens on the camera, and show you what I mean. Alright, so straight away you can see, because the hole is only tiny, and so there's hardly any light coming through, so it's darker. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't use that wide opening, because the wide opening lets a whole lot of light in, and it overexposes the photo, or the video even. When it's a tiny little light, opening rather, and a little bit of light gets through, and therefore everything's darker. That's why it's darker. But can you see that? See my hand? You can see it's out of focus a little bit, but it's not completely blurry. It is blurry, but it's not completely blurry. And then when I get down here, I'm using external light, you can see that it's still, in focus. So look at that, you get this massive range. It's like a big distance being in focus. That's because that little tiny hole is forcing all of the light to go through a particular hole, small hole, a very wide area. A large distance can be in focus. Now when I move the aperture into f1.2, have a look at this. It gets lighter. See how it's getting lighter? There's so much light coming through. So now let's open up at f1.2. Watch that again. if I push that down to f22, you see two things are happening there. That background over there, this screen, is becoming in focus, and then when I move, I'm only changing the aperture here, everything goes brighter and out of focus. So it's letting a lot of things in there. The camera's kind of compensating a little bit as well to make it not quite as bright as it was. But look at that. It's kind of in focus just there, round about there. If I move it forward, see how it goes out of focus? And then out a little bit, it goes out of focus. That range, that's called the depth of field. In focus there, staying in focus, and then out of focus there. It's very, very small. Whereas if I make that back to the f16, it gets very much darker. I have to get the external light now so that we can see. And then you can see it's in focus there, all the way over there. There's a massive depth of field for what is in focus in that range. And that's it. That's basically the cheats poor man's version. I've been using the 50mm lens, and of course it means that, and that's another subject, 50mm lens means it's blowing up the magnification quite a bit. So look, that explains in a very, very unscientific way, but a very easy to understand, practical way to see what's going on to get that that depth of field. So it's all about the size of the aperture, the size of that. It's called an iris. The actual veins inside the lens. That iris, when the iris is letting only a small amount of light through, it has a massive depth of field. When it's opened as wide as it can go, it's very shallow depth of field, like depth of a pool kind of thing. Shallow pool, deep pool, depth of field is just like that. The shallow depth of field gives you a very small range of what's in focus, and a deep depth of field, or a wide depth of field, gives you a much wider range of what's in focus. And all it means is, if you want that blurred background, get a wide aperture. If you want everything in focus, get a small aperture. Simple as that.